It's 10 p.m. deep in the heart of Ohio, and this is Field Investigations with Agent J. I'm here at the desk, files open, coffee hot, and the unknown is waiting just beyond the static. If you've seen something that shouldn't be there, something that makes your skin crawl, something that keeps you staring at the ceiling long after the house goes quiet, then please pull up a chair, turn up the volume, and join me. The chat is live, so drop your encounters, your questions, and your nightmares. No judgment, no filters, because out there, after dark, anything is possible. Let's investigate. Thank everybody for joining me again here tonight on Field Investigations. I am the aforementioned Agent J out here, just, staring into the void, hoping something decides to stare back. I've, spent most of my day delving into more of these MUFON files from last night. Hopefully, we will be able to enjoy some of these together tonight. I do have a couple of stories prepared should we choose to go that route. Um, you know, there's still so much going on out there. And I worry that the certain aspects of the show will become redundant, but I do not man alive, I do apologize. I don't want them to become redundant, but I also don't want them to become lost. So we're gonna do a real quick update right after this. I'm gonna look at the chat here. Hello, Jennifer, popping in the chat as always. Good evening. I hope everybody is doing well tonight. Just so everybody's aware, I do believe I have the chat line or the call-in line open. We're going to open that up here at the 10:30 part of the hour. So get your questions or your stories ready. We're going to keep the chat short, just as to kind of test this out. And if it goes well, then we'll continue doing these. But I digress. There's not a lot of updates on what's going on here locally. To begin with, the Bigfoot case, there have been some updates from a couple of the local researchers, but they don't seem to have much to go on in terms of updates. So we're going to leave that with the last official sighting now being on, I believe, the 12th. I haven't seen any updated reports coming in. I'm concerned that while the investigations are happening up in that area, that we might not be getting awareness to areas where it might be moving to. Now, I've stated that all things being equal, and I believe this is happening, following the route that it's moving, I believe it was heading towards the Columbiana area, and may now be heading down, we're talking almost 6-7 days later since the last sighting, north of Columbiana. And I point Columbiana because of the documented Bigfoot calls that we have from the area that are some of the best that we have. But going down that general direction does lead us towards, more of, the Appalachia. And where we also tend to kind of consider these things coming from anyway. So I'm just drawing correlation, but correlation does not equal causation, so, whatever. Or whatever that is backwards, even. Welcome to the chat, guys. Pop in. Just let me know how we're sounding here tonight. Make sure my dulcet tones are, being received into your ear bones appropriately. If you're joining and you feel like there's not enough people here, I would be one to agree with you, and I would say share this with your friends. Get them to join in. Let's all have a conversation. Because right now it seems there's a lot to be discussed. Right, back to the chat. Definitely coming from Appalachia. I mean, Appalachia is clearly where these things are gonna come from. I mean, Appalachia is, older than some impact craters on the moon. I mean, Appalachia is so vast and so old. Um, how could you not think that? How could that not just be the where you go to? It almost seems default. It seems like that's where we should start. And then the way everybody, humans tend to think these days is that then we should go to simpler options. But like that seems like the most simple option. Let's start there. I mean, that's clearly it's on the grounds in which it exists. So, but what are we gonna do? So no new real updates there other than my own personal ongoing theory, of course. No new updates really on the UFO front from my end of of Ohio, of the United States. Um, but that this sometimes it's slow coming. Where it's not slow though is on MUFON. Again, checking in today. There's a good batch of stuff just from overnight reportings, whether they be recent or recalled. So we'll be diving into those tonight. Um, just for something to chat about. So, like I said, we'll keep the lines open. I'll drop the phone line here about 10:30 and open that up. But until then, please feel free to keep it open in the chat, and we'll keep this moving. For those of you listening in the future, pay attention to how this operates, and hopefully it leads you to contributing to the discussion mano a mano in the future. Back to the chat real quick before we dive into these MUFON files. Jen again says the older than most, and this is in reference to the Appalachian Mountains or region. She says older than most life on Earth. There's no way that supernatural stuff does not come from there. She says comes from there, but I know I see what she means. Yeah, I mean it's whether it's conspiracy or any version of real life, it's a scary place. It's not a good joint necessarily. But it is always full of these stories, and it makes sense as to why we do get so many sightings here in the Northeast Ohio region. But then, um, the sightings down into West Virginia, into PA, and all that as well. Um, I mean, it's hard not to draw any type of parallel. But yeah, so that's where we're at right now with our updates on local things that are being reported on larger things. We're gonna dive in a little bit more into some of the most recent updates on the MUFON files. I'm waiting for my. There we go. But one thing I thought we would start with was an interesting story that I um, came across earlier as just part of a little bit of a story, part of our show. Now, this is what's reported as the Aurora, Texas UFO incident. And it is a incident that reportedly occurred on April 17th. Now listen to this. In 1897. That's right, you heard me. The year of our Lord, Anno Domini, 1897. In Aurora, Texas, a small town in the northwest corner of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. The incident, similar to more famous Roswell UFO incident, which, mind you, comes, if you remember what I stated, 1897, Roswell being 50 years after this, reportedly resulted in a fatality from the crash. The alleged alien body is reportedly buried in an unmarked grave at the local cemetery. Now, I am admittedly a big cemetery buff, so that gets me going in general. But we're gonna read this as reported. Again, I'm looking at various newspaper clippings of this. Mainly an after the fact situation where it seems to be modern day, and by modern I mean clearly in the late 80s, maybe even early 80s, late 70s, from these newspaper clippings of ufologists going, catching wind of the story and going out to the grave itself. The cemetery in Aurora, the Aurora Cemetery, that the body is said to be buried at, has an estimated establishing point of 1861, which is fascinating. So we're going to deep dive into this. During the 1896-1897 time frame, some 6 or 7 years before the Wright brothers' first flight, numerous sightings of a cigar-shaped mystery airship were reported across the United States. One of these accounts appeared in the April 19th, 1897 edition of the Dallas Morning News. Written by Aurora resident S.E. Hayden, the alleged UFO is said to have hit a windmill on the property of Judge J.S. Proctor 2 days earlier at around 6 a.m. local Central Time, resulting in its crash. The pilot, who was reported to be not of this world and a Martian, according to a reported Army officer from a nearby Fort Worth, did not survive the crash and was buried with Christian rites at the nearby Aurora Cemetery. The cemetery contains a Texas Historical Commission marker mentioning the incident. Reportedly, the wreckage from the crash site was dumped into a nearby a well nearby, located under a damaged windmill, where some ended up with the alien in the grave, while some. Um, Adding to the mystery was the story of Mr. Brawley Oates, who purchased Judge Proctor's property around 1945. Oates cleaned out the debris from the well in order to use it as a water source, but later developed an extremely severe case of arthritis, which he claimed to be a result of contaminated water from the wreckage dumped into the well. As a result, Oates sealed up the well with a concrete slab and placed an outbuilding on top of the slab. This is according to writing on the slab. It was done in 1957. I found this one interesting. The idea of aliens or these things existing outside of our time is seldom talked about, with the exception of maybe Egypt or Samaria. So we like to talk about aliens or tell stories or have theories about them in terms of ancient history or modern history, but not so much that area in between. Those the Renaissance is rife, Matt, with stories, or not even stories, well, definitely stories, but paintings, images, of showing these things. I mean, these things have existed across time. And there is something dastardly poetic about aliens in the Old West. What a juxtaposition. On this, there is a hoax theory. The hoax theory is primarily based on historical research performed by Barbara Brommer, a former mayor of Aurora. Her research featured as part of the UFO Files episode on the incident revealed that in the months prior to the alleged crash, Aurora had been beset by a series of tragic incidents. First, the local cotton crop, a major source of town revenue, was destroyed by a boll weevil infestation. How awful are boll weevils? My God. I can't believe I just read that out loud. Second, a fire on the town's west side claimed several buildings and lives. Shortly after the fire, a spotted fever epidemic hit the town, nearly wiping out the remaining citizens and placing the town under quarantine. Finally, a planned railroad got within 27 miles of Aurora but never made it into the town. Essentially, Aurora, which claimed nearly 3,000 residents at the time, was in serious danger of dying out. Brammer's research also showed that Hayden was known in the town to be a bit of a jokester, and her conclusion is that Hayden's article was a last-ditch attempt to keep Aurora alive. The theory was further supported by the fact that Hayden never performed any sort of follow-up on the story, not even to report on the alien's burial, which is highly unusual given the significance of the event. Further, in 1979, Time magazine interviewed Etta Pegas, who claimed that Hayden had fabricated the entire story, stating that Hayden wrote it as a joke to bring interest to Aurora. The railroad bypassed us and the town was dying. Pegas further claimed that Judge Proctor never operated a windmill on this property, statement later refuted as part of the UFO Hunters episode. There's been several investigations on this on numerous occasions. One is broadcast by local television station KDFW Fox 4. Two were aired on cable television. In 1998, Dallas-based TV station KDFW aired a lengthy report on the Aurora incident. Reporter Richard Ray interviewed former Fort Worth Star-Telegram reporter Jim Mars and other locals who said something crashed in Aurora. However, Ray's report was unable to find conclusive evidence of extraterrestrial life or technology. Ray reported that the state of Texas erected a historical plaque in town that outlines the tale and labels it legend. The UFO Files investigation on December 2005, titled Texas Roswell, featured the 1973 investigation led by Bill Case, an aviation writer for the Dallas Times-Herald, and the Texas State Director of Mutual UFO Network, or MUFON. They had uncovered two eyewitnesses to the crash. Mary Evans, who was 15 at the time, told of how her parents went to the crash site. They forbade her from going. And the discovery of the alien body. Charlie Stevens, who was 10, told how he saw the airship trailing smoke as it headed towards Aurora. He wanted to see what happened, but his father made him finish his chores. Later, he told how his father went to town the next day and saw the wreckage from the crash. MUFON then investigated the Aurora Cemetery and uncovered a grave marker that appeared to show a flying saucer of some sort, as well as readings from its metal detector. MUFON asked for permission to exhume the site, but the cemetery associated declined permission. After the MUFON investigation, a marker was mysteriously disappeared from the cemetery, and a 3-inch pipe was placed into the ground. MUFON metal detector no longer picked up the metal readings from the grave, and it was presumed that the metal was removed from the grave. MUFON's report eventually stated that the evidence was inconclusive, but did not rule out the possibility of a hoax. The episode featured an interview with Mayor Brammer, who discussed the town's tragic history. On November 19th, 2008, UFO hunters first aired another television documentary regarding the Aurora incident titled First Contact. The documentary featured one notable change from the UFO Files story. Tim Oates, nephew of Brayley Oates, and the now owner of the property with the sealed well where the UFO wreckage was purportedly buried, allowed the investigators to unseal the well in order to examine it for possible debris. Water was taken from the well, which tested normal except for large amounts of aluminum present. The well had no significant contents. It was stated in the episode that any large pieces of metal had been removed from the well by past owners of the property. Further, the remains of a windmill base were found near the well site, which refuted Miss Pagea's statements from the 1979 Time magazine article that Judge Proctor never had a windmill on his property. In addition, the Aurora Cemetery was again examined, although the cemetery associated still did not permit exhumation. Using ground-penetrating radar, the photos from prior visits, an unmarked grave was found in the area near the 1890s graves. However, the condition of the grave was badly deteriorated, and the radar could not conclusively prove what type of remains existed. What an absolutely crazy story. Again, one going back 140 years next year. Can you believe that? Going back here to the chat, looking at Jennifer, absolutely, you think Da Vinci wasn't communicating something supernatural? Absolutely, he was. Also in the chat with Jen says, the story of chaos in the old settlement is giving me Pale Door vibes. Yeah, Pale Door. I assume is she's speaking to a film of the same name that kind of had that whole thing. Which, man, that was a cool film. Wonder if that does have. I might have to rewatch that. I don't. That's interesting. But you know, I couldn't help but include that story in tonight's episode, regardless of what we talked about. Because man alive, 1897. What an incredible sighting. Coming back, we are gonna open up the phone lines here. I'm gonna drop that. Gosh, I'm having so much trouble with the actual text-based chat, and I do apologize, guys. I don't know what's going on. I'm gonna close this out on my phone. Maybe that'll help out. But we're gonna open up the chat lines. We're just gonna leave them open. Nobody, you don't have to just call right this second. But as we, continue with the chat tonight, please, step in, tell me your stories. We are gonna go over these a couple more MUFON files from last night that I thought were very, very interesting, and decided to dive into a bit more today. So we are gonna do that for sure. As soon as do we have it? Do we have it? Do we have it? We got it back. Okay. Quick swig from my tea. I keep ruining my. I should have wrote my intro more ambiguous than saying coffee hot, because I often am drinking tea at this time of night. But hey, I get it. All right, so we are gonna move on here, and actually, come on, man, what's happening here? Real quick, just to drop this in the chat, or drop this out there. The call in line for tonight is 330-649-7209. Please, if you feel like giving a call, it's 330-649-7209. Now, I do ask that if you are calling into the chat, please turn down your show. You can clearly leave it on, even if you want to leave it low, but let's just not have any echo back there. And please watch your words. Let's not get us in any trouble. Not that I'm concerned about being monetized, but let's not risk any future demonetization. This show is for everybody. But, if you'd like to give us a call, talk about the Aurora, Texas UFO incident, or any of the stories we've had in the past, please call in. But until then, we're going to flip around and look at some of these MUFON stories. Looking just at today, again, March 19th, 2026, there were five that were reported, and of those five, three were from the last 10 days. The rest were a little bit older, and as I stated before, the site gets a lot of old stuff. We discussed the stigma of telling these stories, and how that makes people kind of delay until finding out about things like this, like through shows like this. But we're going to go into a couple of those. But I also figured we'd go back and just kind of take off where we were at before with last night, which was, I believe we finished up on Cincinnati, Ohio. We were discussing a singular light acting erratically above the river down there. This next one is going to come to us from Camp Verde, Arizona. It says darting, flashing, hyper speed and directional change. All of these being the stereotypes of said vehicle. We're going to open up the video here, so hopefully you guys can hear this. Let me know in the chat if you can, just to double check. It's going to take a second, apparently. Hopefully we can get them to play. The MUFON site's been a little funky this last 48 to 72 hours. The videos have been very slow to load. And I'm streaming fine, so I don't think it's my connection. I do think it's an issue with MUFON. It could be an issue with these the MP4s or whatever type videos. I do seem to have more of an issue with MP4s now that I'm paying attention to it. Well, we'll go to the long description on this and at least read that. Wow, okay. Obsessed stars moving, and I looked closely and realized they weren't stars. Observed one following a plane, and another went behind it and shot off with a follower going with, disappearing and fading out, then returning and darting around. Observed many more throughout the night. Alright, I'm gonna turn this up a little bit. Got a little bit of people saying they can't hear me. I do apologize. Just check in the chat. Let me know if you guys can hear me. It might be my own fault, just being a little farther away from the mic. But that's kind of a weird story. Unfortunately, the information or the story is a little blocked up. Welcome to the chat, everybody, whoever's joining. Hopefully you guys are hearing me all right. I can even turn my mic up a tiny bit. Let me know how that is. Oh, good. Thank you, Jen, in the chat. We did just, for those of you just joining, you missed out on quite a story about an alien kind of from 1897. Yes, 1897. 40 years before the Roswell incident. It was a very good story, so when you go back to decide to listen to this tomorrow, make sure you check out the beginning. Right now, we are on the MUFON Files. I do have the chat live and active. The phone number is here in the chat if you want to try to call in. The line is active. If I don't get to you right away, which I will try my best. But please call back. I don't have like a hold system figured out quite yet. I'm going to hold you guys to a short amount of time on the calls just as we start this out. And I am going to ask that we are treating this a little bit like a chat or as a test episode. So if you are not hearing either myself or the caller, I need you guys to drop in the chat. Let me know. We can shut that part down so we don't ruin the whole flub of an episode. But we're going to give that a shot. Fonte1313 says better. Thank you for checking in. I appreciate that. Mike Sander, thank you for joining the chat. Yo! Wow, that was loud. It blew I actually kind of messed up one of my own headphone speakers. But as I said, please check out the chat. For the phone number, it does not appear to be in there. The phone number is 330-649-7209. If you want to call in. We're going to go back here to the MUFON Files, chat about them a little bit. Anybody that wants to either, like I said, pop in the chat or give us a call, let's have some fun here tonight. Their next story here comes from Columbia, Missouri. An orb witnessed moving towards house, hovered above backyard, and then shot straight up into space at incredible speed. Wow, this is quite the okay. This is a longer story, so this is a good one. We'll try to go through here. Get a little closer to it. My old eyes. My special eyes. My ex-wife and I were sitting in the backyard around a fire. I had just looked at my phone right before we had noticed the object. I remember noting that the battery was at 20%. Immediately after that, I looked up because I had noticed motion in my peripheral vision, and that's when I saw the orb, as it was moving over the neighborhood several streets over. It was moving towards us slowly, but at a grid like pattern, almost made it look like it was searching for something. Not the first time we've heard that, people. Towards us, left, towards us, right, towards us, left, etc. It was maybe 100, 150 feet off the ground, spherical in shape, brightly glowing white. The best way I can describe its appearance is that it looked like a bright star in the sky, but much closer, as if a star had come down and was intelligently traveling a path over our neighborhood, fairly close to the ground. As it got closer, and after I had recovered from being in shock and confusion as to what I was looking at, I pulled up my phone to record. It was dead, which was weird because it had just been at 20%, which should have lasted at least another hour or two without me using it. I told my wife to record it with her. She looked at it, and it was also dead. She went to grab her camcorder from inside. While she was inside, the orb had made its way so close to us it was right over our backyard, and it had stopped. My wife yelled that the camcorder was dead as well, and she was trying to find batteries. I yelled back and told her to forget it and just come watch because it had stopped right over our backyard. She came back out and we both looked and stared at it. I can't explain it, but I knew something intelligent was looking at us, and that's why it had stopped. Now that it had stopped moving and I was close, I estimate it was somewhere between 10 and 15 feet in diameter, almost seemed to be slightly pulsing, but I was unsure to whether it was actually pulsing or appeared to be pulsing from spinning. It was hard to tell because it was glowing so brightly. Hold on, I'm sorry. Other than slightly pulsating, it hovered there, not moving at all for maybe 3 to 4 minutes, and then it started to ascend straight up and into the air. But just canted enough, I could see it. It actually moving, not just appearing to get dimmer. It started slowly, but it immediately started to accelerate and did not stop. It did not change direction either. It shot straight up into space until it was completely gone from our ability to see it. It was fastest moving thing I've ever seen in my life, and I've seen some extremely fast aircraft in the military. This might sound like silly in comparison, but the best way I can describe it is leaving is by comparing it to stars seen from the cockpit in Star Wars movie. My best guess was the whole incident from first noticing it to leaving was approximately 15 minutes. Now, there are no photos included on this one, sadly, but man, what a story. What a story on that. It's not the first time we've talked about stories of electronics being altered or drained in around these types of objects. Not necessarily with my experiences in ufology, or with UFOs, but in the paranormal. I've dealt with spirits or presumed spirits or any of these types of things draining my technology. It's an interesting thing. Who knows? I'm not 100% sure what it is. I'm not going to pretend to know. But again, not the first time we've heard this type of case. And looking at some of these stories, it's almost weird that some are so similar, so far apart. But also, I'm trying to find some stuff that I think has good, video content as well. And the MUFON page doesn't make it easy or quick to bookmark. I'm curious as to how their investigators go about using this because frankly, I can't imagine that it would be beneficial. Again, I started doing the process. They actually had a really great online what they call a college, but I mean, Christ, but an online thing for becoming an investigator and things like that. That is a wildly different system that seems really sophisticated. And then this is relatively rudimentary. But yeah, looking at some video here out of Callahan, Florida. I'm still seemingly having trouble with the PD or MP4s. These are orbs from Callahan, Florida that are seemingly, while not snow, maybe pollen. So we're gonna trash that one. That one will be out. We'll double check on the second one. Nope. Dust, pollen. Sorry. Um, this one from Chicago Airport is interesting. I do remember I viewed this one earlier, and we'll read the story. I hope that it plays because I thought this one had some interesting audio in it. Well, no, this one does not seem to have, or maybe it's just not playing back. Yeah, it seems to not be playing back. It's just an orb in the sky that is moving, and then nearly completely stops nearly on a dime. It's very interesting. They pan over, you kind of see another one of these things in the sky just hovering there, feet above a building as well. It does not appear to be any type of, I mean, unless there's a 7 or 8 story light on top of one of these mid-range buildings. I don't know what these things are. They're not planes. One could be is definitely. I think as it moves in, this one is a plane, but there's one main one that's definitely not. So, an interesting one. We're gonna pop over here. We'll look at the video or the story here out of Chicago. Glowing light in Chicago. Saw a very bright light from my apartment facing west towards O'Hare, which is an airport there in Chicago. I thought it was a helicopter, but it seemed to be much brighter. I checked the Flight Aware app, which if you guys haven't checked that, you can, if you ever have questions about your own sightings, you can check the Flight Aware app. I didn't see a helicopter on the radar, but the object moved slowly and then disappeared, which is a pretty decent description of what we're talking about on there. Very interesting bit. This report is an interesting one. It comes from December 3rd, 2021. Now I will say those last couple were again from this month alone. I did not say the dates. It was through both. One was 3/12, one was 3/1. Both were from this month of this year. This one we're gonna go back a couple years to discuss. Says UFO looked cigar shaped. It was quiet. It looked so close I could reach out and touch it. It was flying, hovering pretty low. I did not look or sound like an aircraft. No noise. The only noise. I love when they put these in these reports. There was no noise. The only noise was from the vehicle traffic nearby. Now, clearly, I understand what they're saying, but it's just funny to read. Union Hills Drive has just along the side of it like windows. They were lit, then suddenly the lights went out or the craft just disappeared. My wife was inside our RV as I was narrating the video, which I am going to play here. Hopefully it plays. And you guys can hear it. Let me know if you guys can or cannot hear this. Might take just a second. Wow. What is this?
Those are windows. That's what it looks like.
Wow.
There's lines in between them. Thicker and then thinner. Varying degrees.
So, I mean, we're looking at a video of a black sky in what looks like a row of lights and you know, again, having seen blimps and stuff my entire life, I mean, this would be 7 or 8 blimps
Now the lights
long.
are off.
Yeah, now it's gone. I mean,
It just went dark.
This is an interesting video. I'm gonna download this one for a long form video that we're gonna do, and I'm gonna try to talk to people. I want to get some people from MUFON for these videos. But man alive, that one was kind of creepy. I mean, now it didn't have that ominous feeling, you know, or as we spoke about last night, as feeling the light, but these were clearly observational. It's a very, very interesting. Wow, that's an interesting video. That one, you know, that one comes in. It just says Arizona. It doesn't give us a day. But again, it doesn't give us an area, city or anything like that. But it does give us the date of, December 3rd, 2021. Fascinating. We're going to check out a couple more of these as we get into the later part of our hour here. I appreciate everybody sticking around. And thanks for checking in with the chat and let me know you guys can hear it. That's great. I do appreciate that. Any of these stories ruminating so far? I mean, what are you guys feeling? I mean, these MUFON stories have been fun to go over, and we'll probably continue going over them the rest of the week. I mean, I almost feel like we can just make an entire show of this until the end of time with you know how much back there is to, but I obviously don't want to focus on that as well. And I do have a lot of really interesting topics. I feel like I might have come in underprepared for some of them in the past, and as this show is finding a little bit more of its life, and as I'm finding a little bit more of my voice, I want to make sure that these are entertaining episodes, of course. So you know that you'll see things changing. I hope everybody sticks around to level up with me.
Okay.
That's not the one I wanted. Let's try that again. To level up with me. There we go. Anyway, I think I can use that. If not, maybe Square Enix will sue me. We're going to move on, though, to Rutherfordton, North Carolina. You heard that right. Rutherfordton, North Carolina. Bright lights observed randomly from my workplace. Now, this is a report reported on and an incident that occurred on March 13th of this year, 2026, the year of our Lord. Someone's Lord. But, so just a few days ago. So we're going to pop this video open here. I'm not even going to read it. We're going to just view this. See what we can see, and then we're going to go back to the description. So that way we're not misled here. I don't see anything in the video so far. Oh, okay. They're focusing. We see a series of 3 lights from center, kind of going to the top right corner. Three flickering lights, but very large lights. I mean, these don't look like stars, and they're very far apart. Now we have a fourth one coming in, or the third one has moved, actually. Third one has come down and moved slightly more towards center. This is actually kind of an interesting video. It's clearly shot from a backyard. And now they're having trouble focusing on them. So we're gonna cut back now. Well, dang, this video is long, and then we got some moving. This is a wild video. Now these aren't close. I mean, they appear to be quite far away, but interesting for sure. Just looking at the report here, which is a little bit lengthy. Have often noted bright lights in various locations in the sky while outside at my workplace. Where I work is on a hill with a small but unobstructed view of east/northeastern sky. Makes for awesome sunrise views. Every time I've noticed any odd lights, I go straight to the Flight Aware or Flight Radar 24 app, another one, Flight Radar 24, to check for aircraft on their radar, since KCLT, southern approach, and departure paths are across from the same horizon. But primarily, arrivals are most often seen coming from west for an approach from the south. I am an aviation geek, so I know what to look for with aircraft lights. The simplest being the very recognizable top and bottom red light beacons. Neither those nor the wingtip navigation lights or a blinking tail strobe were visible. The lights I saw The lights I saw and have seen looked like taxi lights on the front of the aircraft. I've considered drones as a possibility, but I figure such a display would be isolated and not a repeated event, not always in the same location. This setting was actually further north than when I normally see them, which is randomly more in proximity to U.S. Highway 74. These lights suddenly brighten from total darkness, shift around, and then fade to black. No blinking at all, no emissions, as I can tell from my vantage point. Best, very rough guess would be distance no less than 2 miles from position. Sorry, the video is not great. Checking in real quick with the chat. This foul year of our Lord. Foul year of someone's Lord. 2026. Right on, Jen. This is great. I love the chat. Keep it going, guys. This story is kind of bonkers, but it is exactly that this description is really well put in regards to what this video is. We do see classical stuff here. The lack of typical aircraft strobation and lighting. Very interesting. And his guesstimation is about what I would say, almost 2 to 3 miles away. So that's another really good video that we got to see. Or got to hear. You guys got to hear. I'm working on getting video clips integrated. Listen, I got a voice for radio, not a face. So I'm trying to avoid that. But it would be nice to be able to include clips when I can. I do have the ability clearly to play sound, which I was going to get to the congressional hearings tonight, but I think we'll chat about those tomorrow with the open lines. Tomorrow night we will be doing open lines from 10 p.m. until we decide to hang up the phone, so please call in. I want to discuss the congressional hearings, starting with David Gresh's hearings back in 2003. I pulled up some clips and have those ready for you. And all the way up into the most recent ones back in December of 2025. So we will be going over those because I do feel that, some sort of disclosure from the Trump administration is imminent. I have seen and read reports stating that there's not only the typical Trump email typed up in regards to the disclosure, not only, of course, a State of the Union, which he requires for every word that comes out of his mouth, but also some verifiable, lengthy interviews planned in regards to disclosure. I'm hoping those things are true. I'm hoping mainly because I needed a distraction from what's happening in Iran. And the only way my brain can do it is by receiving dopamine in the form of the paranormal and UFOs. So we'll be going over that tomorrow. I stopping in the chat. Thank you. The Jen in the chat says you have a voice for radio and a face for TV. I do. I would say I have a face for 1950s TV. A background character in maybe Twilight Zone. Maybe early seasons of Outer Limits, mainly because the production value was actually lower on those. And you could maybe not quite pick up what's going on there. But man, we're looking here. Man, this one from Slidell, Louisiana. A black triangle shape. I mean, man, that is a black triangle. Now, we all have an idea of the black triangle, the BN 2200. As stated before, it'd be interesting to get more on that, but those are some clear ones. Again, a Slidell, Louisiana, no description other than black triangle, so I'd have to look into that more. Back in the chat, Donald Trump can't spell disclosure. No, but he has some people that can tell him that he got it close enough, I'd like to hear him pronounce it. I don't know. There's orb with no flashing lights, Holland, Michigan. I'm trying to find this most... Davenport, Iowa. This one coming out of Davenport, Iowa from March 13th. So again, just a couple days ago. It says 7 spheres glowing orange, sent close-up zoomed-in pics from videos. Spaced apart, same path visible through tree ascending, moving from southwest to northeast, faded dissolve from view. I love things like this. And then because it goes into 8:38 until 9 p.m. quietly. With that kind of detail, but very little actual substance to the story, which is very funny. Oh, this is the wrong one. So this is from Holland, Michigan again.
That was the weirdest thing.
That's not a plane. There's no blinking lights on it.
Nope. I apologize. The wrong one. Even that one's from Holland. This one is from Davenport, Iowa. First picture is a drawing. Okay. Strange, but I'll bite. Okay, here we go. This one seems to be a movie.
There were 3 others.
Oh yeah, you
they
see.
Don't make a sound.
Oh wow.
Did anyone else see it?
So these are similar in the video, mind you, to how like maybe Mars shows up in the sky next to the moon. That kind of faint flickering orange light, but then she pans over to a moving stationary orange light, and by moving stationary I mean that the light isn't flickering. There's none of what that we had mentioned in the other thing. It's just a straight orange light moving across the sky. It hits a certain point and then it blinks. Maybe there's something in the way or whatever, but then it goes right back to a flat orange light moving across the sky.
Going over the river.
And it's passing these other, or going towards these 4 or 5 other lights.
Did anyone else see it?
And now they are seemingly gone. What a wild video that is. You know, I'd like to see more from that for sure. Well, but guys, we are getting down. It's the 11 o'clock hour. I think we'll call it a night for now. Tomorrow, depending, you know, I might even start the show early just with a little bit of the chat lines open. Give me the gold. I want the gold. I'll give you the gold. But we are going to touch base on a couple more of these tomorrow night. I do want to go into the Green Man of PA. It is a good story. It's an interesting little myth, but also has some real world implications and influence. So I think it'll be a fun thing to discuss. And like I said, we'll have the chat wide open all night. And no time limit. Maybe, and we'll go into the last man standing. Whatever you guys want to talk about, whether it be movies, music, anything tangentially related to this show, and we'll have a good time. Mike, Jen, everybody in the chat, thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. And everybody that's going to be listening in the future, I hope you enjoyed this. Come back for the next one. Stay spooky, stay curious, be kind. See ya.